Hey guys, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. I made that weird little hybrid buzzbait last time we were out here building stuff in the shop, and I don't want to leave it alone. Let's do something else with it. So it's kind of like this. This is the way I designed it originally, the way I configured it, with a jig head reaching almost to the middle of the topwater lure and the tie-on location up here in line with the topwater lure. And I've given this a little bit of thought. I had a couple issues with it because it just felt heavy and it felt like it didn't really want to stay on the surface. It wanted to kind of dive down a little bit. And what I concluded was that this wire here was causing enough drag that it was causing a turning moment downward so that it wanted to pull the whole thing underwater. So what I did to improve it was to bend this more on an angle to get it closer so it would have less leverage to pull this thing underwater. It helped, and I actually got this thing to work pretty well last time. But it just felt awkward, it felt heavy, and it didn't feel like it was pulling across the top. So we're gonna make some changes. First of all, let's contrast this to what a typical buzzbait is gonna look like. So a typical buzzbait is going to have the tie-on location in line with the jig because that's where the hook is. There's nothing up there but the buzz propeller. And it's a smart way to go. It also keeps that buzz propeller on top because you're pulling down here and the buzz propeller is wanting to drag back and stay on the surface. The problem is if we do it that way, this topwater lure is likely to get most of the action and we'll end up with a big torque on the wire when that fish pulls. We can continue to pull it from the top, but we're still going to have the problem with it wanting to go underwater, I think. So let's just split the difference. Let's put it right in between them. And to help reduce the leverage of the jig, let's move it forward and we'll make it a little lighter and use a smaller bullet weight. So that's going to be the new configuration. Let's see how it's going to work. First, we'll take the topwater lure off. It's just on there with a split ring. And here's a quick learning lesson for you guys who make lures out of casting resin. If you look at this, we've got a bunch of lure warts on this thing. All those little bumps, bulges, those all appeared after I left this thing out in the sun for about a half hour. That is the danger of rushing to paint the lure. It really does need to sit for a couple of days at least. I prefer like a week to actually allow the casting resin to fully cure and off gas. And then you can wipe it down with some alcohol, give it a light sanding, and then you can paint it and finish it and be pretty confident that you're not going to get these nasty little warts all over it. Now, I don't want to throw this whole thing away because I want to reuse this as an inline spinner and I want to reuse this as an easy to put on inline buzzbait that I can attach to any topwater. So I'll just cut this off right there. And there you go. That ought to be fun. We'll try that out later. And then I can take the little buzz propeller and pretty much connect this to any topwater lure that I want to enhance or make it look like a plopper bait. So the first thing we're going to do is use the wire to snell the hook for the jig. And I'll pass the wire through, give myself about 1.25 inches, straighten the wire on the long end so it's in line with the shank of the hook, and then rotate the bottom tail part so it's 90 degrees or more or less. And then using our little snelling tool, we'll go ahead and give it a few good wraps. And the loose twists can act like a little screw anchor for a soft plastic lure that I can just wedge onto it. And now I need a bullet weight, and I'm going to use one that's about half the weight of the one I used last time. And this doesn't have any color on it, so let's go ahead and powder coat it with a nice maybe orangey coat. So let's see if it still works. Oh yeah. Alright, and we're going to use this nice orangey yellow powder paint that just gets wedged in there. And when I turn on the vibrations, you can see that the powder just sort of flows and rolls around on itself. And will give us a nice coating. First I need to heat up the bullet weight. And we just dip. Finish off the heating and cook it on good and solid. And there you go. I hope you can see that well. It's nice and shiny, and it looks like a real nice professional finish. And if you haven't seen me use the vibration table before, I did a video on how I designed it and tested it, and I'll put a link to that right up here. If you're interested, check it out. All right, with this thing nice and cool, I can slide it down onto the wire where it's going to end up being. Now the hook is going to be facing downward away from the top lure. And I'm going to glue this on there, and instead of using crazy glue like I did last time, I'm going to use some UV resin. Just scoop a bunch on there and set it with the UV light. Put a little bit of extra just to make sure it doesn't end up moving at all. And just sighting down it, I just want to make sure that it's nicely aligned and the wire doesn't have a kink in it. And it looks pretty good right now. All right, now I'm going to go up the shank of the wire just about an inch and give this thing about a 45-degree bend. That's about right. And I'm going to go up an inch again and bend it. The idea is to get it in line with the original. So I guess that would be about 45 degrees again. And then I want to overbend it just slightly so I can have a little shoulder on this. And then we'll bend it back all the way. And later on we'll make sure everything's nicely aligned and we don't have any bends that are getting it out of whack. And just how it sits right there, I'm going to bend it on the little ledge of my wire bending pliers and give it that bend going away, trying to make it about equal to that other bend. And then we'll come up about an inch, and then we'll bend this leg in line with the lower leg. That's looking pretty good. All right, now we need to get the hardware on this upper leg, and I'll put a couple of beads on there, and this time I'm using plastic beads just to try to keep the weight down. And the next thing will be a rivet body, and I'll need to get the pin out just like I did last time, and I'll do that by just knocking it out. I'll be using two. Run that down. The next thing is the buzz propeller, the second rivet, and a couple more beads. Now we just need to make an eye back here where the topwater lure is going to attach. And I want that eye to be vertical because the tie-on eye on that lure is vertical, and I'm going to attach them with a split ring. I want to make sure that lure is nice and vertical. So we'll give it a downward bend, put a little bit of a shoulder in it, keep bending around so it comes around nice and tight. And then I really only need to put a twist and a half in it. With wire this heavy, you really don't need much of a twist. And then we just snip off the excess. And we have our rig.
And it's just a matter of dressing things up a bit with a skirt first. And we'll add a little grub tail. And finally, some eyes.
Alright, now for the last bit of the puzzle, I'm going to go ahead and not reuse this one. Now, last time I talked about downsizing the topwater, but you know what? I'm not going to downsize. In fact, I'm going a little bit bigger. But it's much lighter because this is a balsa lure I made a while back. In fact, I'll put a link to the video in the description so you guys can see it. It's going to sit quite a bit farther back than it did last time compared to the jig head. Pretty much how I wanted it. And it's just a matter of putting it on with a split ring and making sure it goes on right side up. And we'll be running it without a belly hook. And that's how it's going to look. Let's go ahead and get out on the water and test this thing.
All right, here we are. Nice quiet spot I've tucked away out of the wind just to test this for a bit. So here it is, moment of truth. Let's toss it in the water. It's got a really nice burble. It definitely wants to stay on top of the water. So what makes me want to laugh is what it looks like when you stop it. It just sits there like some kind of wreckage. It's just some oddball parts. Somebody dropped like a tackle box in the water. don't know if you can see the stump down there, just below the surface. Just the right depth for a propeller. There's a bunch more there. Of course, that one's sticking out. So I'm casting near the shoreline and trying to pull into the depth where the lily pads are growing, wherever I can find them. Hoping that there's a fish kind of lurking under the lily pads, waiting for a poor hybrid buzzbait to come by. More of these guys, look at that. There's another one. Doing my best to avoid them. There's one right there. There's another one right there. Kind of threading the needle between them. Something bit off the tail. A lot of little fish around here. All right, let's see what we have in here for soft plastics. Maybe we can find something to put on there. This is mostly salt water, but that looks pretty good. Maybe the white. I think I'll go with this little gold glitter swimmer. No! Oh, come on. We're on a log. I don't know if you guys can see all these beds. They're everywhere, these abandoned beds. I'm not sure. I don't think, maybe they were bass. Maybe tilapia. Yeah, it's tilapia. I just saw one fly off of it. So far, I'm pretty happy with it. It is staying on top a little better. It doesn't tangle with itself, which is good news. You still do have to kind of pump it along at a pretty good clip. Pretty much like a regular buzzbait, because buzzbaits, let's face it, they'll sink pretty quickly. Weeds. You know, on the last one, I asked everybody to try to guess what hook would get snagged first. So on the first bite, which hook is going to be in the mouth of the fish? The trailing hook on the hard body lure, or that single hook down on the jig? And I think, I didn't do a formal count, but I think most people thought the jig hook was going to get it. And I gotta say, I think it's going to be the topwater. Speculation, speculation. We got nothing right now. Oh, right in the tree. Oh, yeah. I didn't think I could cast that far. Thank goodness it came out. God, almost snagged again. Right up on the bank. There's something swimming over there. I don't know what it is. Almost want to throw something else to see if I can be interested in it. Oh, don't get stuck. Man, I keep throwing it right on the logs. Come on, something come out of that log. That little swim tail is actually giving it a little extra action. I'm hoping that something under those trees thinks that a small bird fell in or something, like a frog, and just snatches at it. I don't know if you can see the tilapia, they're huge, man. I switched to my balsa bluegill just to give my hand a break. It's just a lot easier to cast and crank. But once we turn this corner over here, we'll get back on the hybrid buzzbait. I'm starting to take it personally that nothing's coming up and grabbing it, but if nothing grabs this either, I won't be as upset, I guess. All right, let's get back to fishing with our with our contraption here. Now this area right here is what I was hoping to fish and get lucky on, because just about every time I come, this is where I catch fish. But it's completely changed since the hurricane. I could never get this close. There were so many logs just floating and in the water. You can see a lot of them on the shoreline. But this was absolutely just a log jam in here. And you could come in here and toss between the logs and almost always come away with a nice fish. Leaving a pretty good bubble trail, that's for sure. All right, guys, well, I hate to give up, but it's getting late and I got a pretty good long drive to get home. I'm not going to give up on this lure, but I don't think I'm going to change it again. I'll leave version 3.0 to you guys. You guys come up with something better. I would love to see if you can. And if you do, you can share it in the comments and send me photographs to theengineeredangler@gmail.com, and I'll definitely check it out and maybe even share some of your photographs in a video. So if you actually want to see me make an experimental lure and fish it right here and catch a nice bass right on this spot, check out this video right here. Don't forget to leave me a like and give me your opinion on what you would add or take away from that lure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.